All right, let's learn the story of going out of Egypt. So what happened? God warned Pharaoh through Moshe and Aaron. He warned them that now there's going to be the plague of the firstborn. And the firstborn are going to all die. Firstborn Egyptians. We did this yesterday. This little portion we did yesterday, but let's just do it again. God said to Moshe and to Aaron in the land of Egypt, and he said, "This month is for you the beginning of months." It is the first for you of the month. The Jewish people, before that, they counted the calendar. The calendar began with Tishrei. 1 minute, just one moment, excuse me. Tishrei was the date that God created man. God created man, and that's when the calendar began. But when the Jews left Egypt, so they were given an additional New Year's Day, and that was New Year's month. That was the month of Tishrei, the month of Nisan. I'm sorry, that was the month of Nisan. The month of Tishrei began with Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the year. That was the date that man was created. Man was created. But the Jews left Egypt. That was like 2,448 years after man was created. They left Egypt. And that month was called the first of the months. The first of the month. And this was the first of the month. The word Nisan also comes from the word nes, miracle. Nes, miracles, the month of miracles. And this is the month that God does everything. The month when man was created, that's signifying that man does everything. Man has to do it all. God wants us to serve him. But on the other hand, the month of Nisan shows that God will do big miracles. And like we learned yesterday, that that's when the Jews left Egypt. God did it basically all himself. And so it will be in the future redemption. That God will do the big miracle. We did this yesterday. Let's just go a little further. Okay, here we go. Now that's what God's going to do, right? He's going to take the Jews out of Egypt. But the Jews have to do something also, and this is going to be the commandments of Passover. What are the commandments of Passover? First of all, to sacrifice a goat or a sheep or a goat. You have to eat it with matzah. Matzah. You have to also eat it with bitter herbs, Mororim. And you have to get rid of all chametz from your house, all leavened bread, all bread that raises up. So those are going to be the big commandments that we're going to learn over here. The Pesach sacrifice, eat matzah, eat the Pesach sacrifice together with bitter herbs and matzah, and to get rid of all the chametz from your house. And then there's also the holiday. It's a holiday. You have to keep a holiday. It's a holiday. So we'll see. Let's look and see. Speak to all the Jewish people and say, on the 10th of this month, each person should take a lebeit avot, celibate, a sheep to your house, a sheep. We're going to learn later. It doesn't have to be a sheep. It can also be a goat. You'll see the next sentence. Next sentence. Here it says, set tamina, a pure, a unblemished sheep, a male, 1 year old, has to be to you from the sheep or from the goats. It can be. There it is, clearly. All right, let's go back a little bit and just let's understand over here. Why do they have to take it on the 10th day? They left Egypt. They're going to sacrifice it on the 14th. So what do they have to take it on the 10th? It says on the 10th day, the 10th of the month, you should take sel beit avot sel bayit. You should take a sheep for each household. Now, ideally, it was supposed to be eaten just by the people of a family. Every family would take. You could also your servants and also the sheep. But it says that if you don't have enough people to eat, because you're supposed to ideally not leave anything over from this Pesach sacrifice until the morning. You're supposed to eat the whole thing. So if there's not enough people to eat it, you can invite other people. We'll get to that. All right, let's go. Here we go. Speak to all the Jewish people and say on the 10th day of the month, each person should take a sheep to his house, the base of the sheep to the one household, a sheep to the house. Rashi, speak to all the Jewish people. It says, I'm sorry. Let's go back up here. And good. Dabru ben Israel, speak to the Jewish people and tell them to take a sheep. So it says, what does it mean? Speak, both of you. Aaron medaber, Aaron speak. It already says atat medaber. It already said that Moshe should do the talking, even though that he was covered pet. He was hard of speech, but he still should do the speaking. But they would give honor one to the other. So the words would come from between both of them. That's why it says speak plural. Dabru, speak to the Jewish people. To all the Jewish people on the 10th, why do they have to? These words were said on Rosh Chodesh. That's what it says. A Chodesh hazeh lechem Rosh Chodeshim. This was spoken about the first day of the month. So it says, in 10 days, everybody should take a sheep into your house. And this was spoken in the verse and it's told everyone to take in another 10 days, take a sheep or a goat into your house. And this was only done one time. After that, the Jewish people, there were several differences between the first Passover, which they did in Egypt, and then the other Passovers, which they did when they came to the land of Israel. Interestingly enough, when they were in the desert, they only did the Pesach 1 year. They didn't do it any more times. They did more. It says that was an embarrassment for them, but nevertheless, they didn't. So the difference between Pesach, there were several differences. One was that they took it on the 10th day. And the Pesach later on, they didn't take it on the 10th day. They just took it a regular sacrifice, like any other sacrifice. On the 14th, they brought it. They didn't have to take it into their house and watch it. Another difference was that they put the blood on their doorposts. That was only when they left Egypt. Only when they left Egypt did they put blood on their doorposts. It says, Sela Beis Avos, to each family. And that's what it says. Right. So it means take each family should try to take, and we'll see that it also means, let's see, one second, there was here the Ramban. The Ramban adds something interesting. He says, why was this commandment? I mean, the Jews are leaving Egypt. Let them leave Egypt. What do they have to take a goat or a sheep and sacrifice it first and then take it to the house 4 days before? They're leaving Egypt. Just leave. And so the reason is several reasons. First of all, the purpose of leaving Egypt was not just that the Jews should be free. There was several purposes. One of them was to teach the Egyptians, to nullify the Egyptians. Another is to teach us, our generations, about how many miracles that God did in order to take the Jews out of Egypt, to show us that God controls nature. It wasn't just a one-time thing, that God did 10 plagues. And this is going to be because the whole thing of the Jewish people is educating the world. So also this same thing that here's part of educating the Egyptians. the zodiac, the what do you call it? The sign of the zodiac sign of the month of Nisan is a telet, it's a sheep. I guess that's Aries. And this is a lot of power because this is the month that everything grows. It's the spring, Aviv. Therefore, they had to take a sheep and sacrifice it to let you know that the power of this sheep, in this powerful month, which is the powerful month of nature, all of nature starts to begin. So that was, the Egyptians were big nature worshipers. So to tell you that the Jews worship a power which creates and is above nature. And some people say that not just because of the symbolic thing of the power of the first thing of the zodiac, but also the Egyptians were worshiping. They used to worship a sheep. So therefore, it tells us know that God was casting down all of their gods and their powers. Therefore, it said, take a sheep and slaughter it, slaughter the god of Egypt. That's what he was saying. So, okay. The Lubavitcher Rebbe also points out that the Jews were in Egypt. They still were among the Egyptians. I mean, they weren't, the Jews were a very big minority among the Egyptians. And even though it's true that that there had been all these plagues, but still, by taking their god, the Egyptian god, into their house, and all the Egyptians would walk by and they would hear this goat, their lord, bleating and braying, whatever it does, and they would say, "What are you doing? What are you taking our god into your house for?" And they say, "Oh, we're gonna slaughter it. We're gonna eat it, and then we're gonna leave Egypt, and all the you firstborn are gonna." So logically, the Egyptians were gonna say, "You're not going to do that. I'm not going to let you do that." And the Egyptians would attack the Jews, but they didn't. The Egyptians did not. The miraculous thing was not so much that the Egyptians didn't attack, but that the Jews weren't afraid. They weren't afraid to do what God wanted. And they kept this sheep or goat in their house for 4 days. 4 days in the house, this thing is making noise. And you figure that eventually the next door neighbors are going to get aggravated. I mean, if your next door neighbor has a sheep and it's bleeding, you can't go to sleep. So that's enough to aggravate you. And if it happens to be your God that you worship, so it's certainly going to make you angry. But the Jews did not have any fear. And because of this courage that they had, that was one of the merits that they had of going out of Egypt. One more over here is the Das Sakanim. It says that when the Jews left Egypt, they took the lamb on the 10th. When the firstborn of Egypt, they said to Israel, "What are you doing?" They said, "This is Pesach. God is going to jump over our houses and he's going to kill you, the firstborn." Then the firstborn said to them, "Hey, listen, let's get rid of these people because they're going to kill everybody." But Paro didn't want to. So then they decided to make a big battle against Paro. And they said, "Maka Mitzrayim b'Bechorihem Kila L'Chazdo." It's one of the praises that we make to God. It's called the Big Hallel. We say this prayer also in Shabbat, that God smote the Egyptians in their firstborn. But you can also read it that God smote the Egyptians with their firstborn. In other words, what does it mean? That the firstborn made a war against Paro. So the firstborn, actually, Egyptians, they fought a battle against Paro for the Jews. So they helped. This is a new thing. that our enemies actually fight within themselves. In other words, the enemies fight our battles. There's also, it says that in the Midrash, that when was it exactly that the Jews took this sheep into their house? This was on the 10th day of the month, and that was Shabbat. They said that when the Jews left Egypt, it was on Thursday. So they took the sheep to their house on Shabbat, and then they watched it for 4 days. And then they slaughtered it on the 5th day. Like it says, right? They took it on the 10th, and then there's 11th. That was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. When they said it, that was the 15th. So if so, that's what he says. This is what's called Shabbat HaGadol. A Shabbat HaGadol is always the Shabbat right before Passover. But the reason it's called Shabbat HaGadol is because a big miracle happened on the day. We celebrated on the Shabbat before, even if it doesn't come out to be the 10th. But that year it happened to be the 10th. So it's called Shabbat HaGadol because a big miracle happened, namely that the Egyptians smote one another to save the Jews. Okay, if there's not enough people in the house for one sheep, right, or the sheep is too fat, or the people are not enough people, then you can take your neighbors. You can all join in together. It doesn't have to necessarily be one sheep for each family. There can be several families that join together for the sheep. Here's an interesting thing. It says, Baal Haturim. Oh, it says, Ish lefi ochlo techosu alaseh. It says each person according to his eating ability, how much you can eat, should be numbered. Techosu means to be counted on the sheep. So Baal Haturim says, Ish lefi ochlo is the numerical value. Ish lefi ochlo b'gematria ochol kazayat. That you should eat a kazayat. That's the gematria. Everyone has to eat a kazayat. It's a certain amount. Tachosu alaseh. It says you should be counted on the sheep, and then it says again a unblemished sheep. So he points out that you have to have two sheeps. That whatever. One is for the Passover offering, and the other one's called for the korban chagiga. So chagiga, the Pesach offering had to be eaten the last thing because it was a mitzvah. It was a commandment, the last thing in the meal. So they would eat the chagiga first, and then they would be satisfied, and then they would eat the Pesach lamb as the mitzvah. In other words, they wouldn't eat it because they were hungry. They did it only for the sake of the commandment. It also says, he brings over here, where is this? He says it's the Gematria. Also that night, the night that they sacrificed the Korban Pesach, the night they actually sacrificed the Korban Pesach was the night that they were going to leave Egypt. Well, it says that they also circumcised themselves. So we're going to see one of the reasons it says why. Let's see if this is where it is. I made a note of it. I just hope I don't forget. No, it's not it. All right. Why it says the reason they had to wait for 4 days was because they took the sheep into their house, and then they circumcised themselves on the same night, and it took 3 days for them to heal. So that's what it is. They took the sheep into their house, then they circumcised themselves, and then after they circumcised themselves, 3 days later or 4 days later, the circumcision healed up so that they could leave Egypt, because the whole time they were in Egypt, they didn't have an opportunity to circumcise themselves. They were working so hard. I forgot where it was. I forgot where I read this. All right. Here, is this where it is? No. Here. Oh. No, it's a different answer. All right. Setamim, a unblemished sheep, a male or a 1-year-old male should be taken from the the sheep or from the goats. And it will be for you, you should keep it until the 14th day of the month. And then on this 14th day, just hold it in your house from the 10th until the 14th. Like, you have to remember, this is only done when the Jews left Egypt. And then you should slaughter it, the whole congregation of Israel, Bein Arbaim. By the way, this is where they learned that there were 3 groups that went into the Holy Temple, because all the Jews, all the males had to go to the Holy Temple to sacrifice. So there were millions of people that stuffed in the Holy Temple to sacrifice their Pesach offerings. So it says, Kahal Adat Yisrael, that there were 3 groups that went in, to go in. Here, this is where it is. 1 minute. Okay, that's where it is. I forgot where I read it, but it is written over here that the reason that they wait for so long is because an uncircumcised person cannot eat from the Pesach offering. So they had to circumcise themselves first. So it says they circumcised themselves on the 14th. And then they observed this, they watched Mishmeret. They had to watch over it to show that they did not develop a blemish. So it says one of the reasons was why only in the, it says Rashi, let's look at Rashi. Mishmeret means that you have to observe it. Watch out that it doesn't have any blemishes in it. So there won't be any mum, there won't be any blemish before the slaughtering. Why did you have to take it 4 days, which is not only when they left Egypt did they have to have 4 days. So beforehand, the other, afterwards, they sacrificed, they took the sheep and they sacrificed it on the same day. Reb Nasya ben Charish said, it says that God passed over the Jews and Varech and saw them. And it says, now is the time of love. Now has come the time when I can fulfill the oath that I made to Avram that I will redeem his children. But I couldn't do it. Lo yabiyadam mitzvot. There were no commandments to work in order that I will redeem them. The Jewish people didn't have any merits. Like it says, at Arum area, it says that you were totally naked and poor. Therefore, God gave them 2 commandments. One of the commandments was the blood of the Pesach offering, and the other one was the blood of the circumcision. Now, according to Rashi, they circumcised themselves on that night, not like what I told you on the 14th, and I can't remember where I just saw it. I just saw it a couple of minutes ago. I can't remember. You see, here he says that they circumcised themselves on the night that they left Passover, like it says, 2 bloods. Also, the blood of your circumcision. And therefore, also because of what you did to right, so it says also another thing is that the Jews also were serving idols in the houses of the Egyptians. They were servants. So the Egyptians would bow down, they would bow down too. So it says that the Jewish people were defiled with idolatry. So God said, it's another pasuk, we're going to see this later on, another sentence, Mishchu u'guluchu lechem. It says, draw away and take a sheep. We're going to see, and it's I think tomorrow's reading. You have to, what does it mean, draw away? Draw your hands away from idolatry, and now take the sheep of a mitzvah. Instead of worshiping the sheep as idolatry, as we worship it, So it says you have to slaughter it from like 12 o'clock in the afternoon and up. You have to sacrifice this sheep and then eat it in the evening. We're going to see about eating it. You have to take from the blood and you have to put it on the 2 doorposts and on the overhang of your door, on the houses which you eat. Now, you're going to see that where did they put it? They put it on the inside of the door. It says lachalos. There should be a sign for you. So the Jews had to put this on the inside of their doors, this blood that they had, and the houses where you're going to eat them. And God says, and you should eat the meat on that night, roasted on fire, and also matzot, together with unleavened bread, matzot, and morin, bitter herbs, to eat them all together. You have to eat the meat, and he says, and not the sinews and not the bones. You have to take some sort of a bitter herb, and there's the arguments in the different opinions of what exactly this bitter herb is that you have to eat. Don't eat it raw. Raw means not cooked properly, baked half, less than 1/3 baked, or boiled in water. You have to eat it roasted on the fire. Its head, on its the thighs, on its stomach. So it was basically sort of curled over. They lifted up the legs, and there's a discourse in this in Chassidut in a book called Derech Mitzvotecha, where the third Rebbe of Chabad, he explains that the Jewish people in Egypt, they were like a baby inside of the mother's womb. We learned that also in what is in Torah or in Parshas Va'era. The Jewish people were like a baby in the womb. What does it mean? That the head is between the knees. In other words, they didn't use their head. Their head was basically not functioning, like a fetus is. A fetus, the head is not functioning. The eyes don't work. The ears don't work. The taste doesn't work. It can't talk. It can't eat. Can't smell. It was totally this. The whole existence was just its body. That's how the Jews were in Egypt. Spiritually, they couldn't see God. They couldn't hear God. They couldn't deal. And therefore, by putting this, the God of the Egyptians, they were, so to speak, doing the same thing to the Egyptians that the Egyptians did to them. They were curling this sacrifice up so its head was on its knees. So it has to be totally roasted. It has to be roasted totally, not like a quarter. It says it has to be that you have to avoid being too rare. There's not necessarily, that's called na in Aramaic. Don't leave over until the morning, and one who does leave over in the morning, you have to burn it. And this is how you should eat it. If you leave over in the morning, then you have to burn it. You can't leave it over. This is how you should eat it. This is not for the later generations. This is not a commandment, even though there are a lot of Jews that have a custom to do something like this as a remembrance. You have to, masnechem chagarim, you have to put like a sash around your belt, shoes on your feet, a staff in your hand, and you should eat it quickly because it is a Pesach. It's called Pesach. Okay, now here we have the interesting word Pesach. Here's the first time. It is a Pesach to God. What does Pesach mean? How did I get this? Rashi says Pesach. HaKorban is called Pesach because of the jumping, that God jumped over the houses of the Jews. Because remember, this is all a preparation for the plague of the firstborn. This is a preface before the firstborn. And God says, now you're going to eat this in the house. In the house where you're on, you're going to put blood on the door. And I'm going to jump over the houses that have blood on the door. And I'm going to kill all the firstborn of the Egyptians. And God said, I'm going to jump from one Egyptian house to another. And if a Jew is in the middle, he'll get away. He'll escape. And but you have to do everything for the sake of heaven. You also, when you serve God, asu kol avodaschem l'shem shamayim derech dilig b'kafitza. And also the same thing. You Jews are in the physical world. You're going to do these physical things, but you should be doing it in a way that it's only for God. And that you're not eating the korb, the Pesach offering, because that's what you have to do in order to get out of Egypt. No, you should do it forgetting about yourself and just jumping to serve God like a big holy person, even though that you're not. But that's what you should do. You should jump. And that's why it's called Pesach. Also, the word Pisca means to me like to step over. The word Pesach also means mercy, but we'll talk about that. That's not the use that he makes it here. That's how you have to eat. Now, why does it have to be eaten with all these strange conditions that you have to have a sash on and you have to have a shoes on, you have to have a staff? So Rashi says in 2 words, mezumani mederech, you have to be ready to leave. In other words, the whole point of Pesach is you do this Pesach sacrifice, and then you eat it. You're eating it ready to go. Like you got to catch a sandwich before you get to catch the plane. All right, you're in a hurry. That's what it means. Bechipazon, hurry. Ba'alam hirut. Like it says, David nechpaz lelechet. He said he was hurried, he was pushed, he was rushing. That's the way it should be eaten. It said, okay. And I will go over the houses of the Egyptians on that night, and I will smite all the firstborn of the Egyptians from his per people and animals, and all of the gods of Egypt. I will carry out judgment because I am God. It says it's like a king that goes from a place to a place. All the first, it says every firstborn in the land of Egypt. It says even Bechoros Acherim, Behem B'Mitzrayim, even if there happens to be firstborn of other nations, but they happen to be in Egypt, how do you know? What about if there's an Egyptian that happens to be in another place, right? Maybe Egyptian, he runs over to Syria or something. Will he escape? Talmud Torah, Lamaka Mitzrayim Bibachorhim. He said that he smote the Egyptians in their firstborn. It doesn't make any difference where they were. Me'aramad Bahema, a man also with the animals. This is because first of all, the Egyptian men, they were the ones that did the sin with the Jewish people. They served the Jewish people, put the Jewish people into servitude, so they got punished first. And also, all the gods of Egypt. If a god, for instance, he had a thing made of wood, it would rot. If it was made of metal, then it would melt. God said, I'm going to do it myself and not by means of a messenger. And the blood will be for you as a sign on your houses that you were there, and I will see the blood, I'll jump over you, and there won't be, there won't be a plague when I go over the land of Israel, go over the land of Egypt. So it says like this, Lachem, it'll be a sign to you, this blood will be a sign to you and not to other people. From here you learn that the blood had to be put on the inside. God said, I will see the blood. What do you mean you see the blood? He had to pass over in order to see the blood. Everything is revealed in front of God. God is creating everything, so he's everywhere. But God is saying to this, listen, I'm going to put my eye out to see who is doing my commandments, and I'll jump over those people. You're going to see something really interesting in another minute. Now he says, upasachti, I will jump over. Rashi translates it not jumping. V'chamalti, I will have mercy. This is like Pasoach v'hamalet, means to be merciful. I say, says Rashi, anytime it says Pesach means to jump. Well, Pesach means jumping over. Jumping over. The Jewish, okay, that's what Pesach means, like to jump, to step over, something like that. Okay. There will not be any plague on you. You will not be plagued. Oh, this is the one I want. This is what I wanted. Oh. I found what I was looking for. Let's do the Rashi first. There will not be a plague for you. Aval havo hu b'mitzrayim, but it will be on the Egyptians. What he just said that before. Listen to this. Hari haya mitzri b'bayishel Yehudi. What if there was an Egyptian, and he went into the house of a Jew, right? He went into the house of a Jew. He put a yarmulke on. He put on tzitzis, and he was shaking, put on tefillin or whatever he was doing. They didn't have tefillin yet. They didn't have any commandments, but only this was the first commandment they had. They didn't have tzitzis either. But whatever he did, he looked like a Jew. So you might think he's in the house of a Jew, so only the people in the Egyptians' houses got smitten. God jumped over the Jewish houses because there was a blood on the door. So if there was an Egyptian hiding in a Jewish house, you might think, an Egyptian firstborn, you might think he would get out. You won't get smitten, but Egyptian would be. What if on the other one, let's say there happened to be a Jew in the house of an Egyptian when this plague of the firstborn came? You might think if it's a firstborn Jew, maybe he'll get smitten. He's in the house of an Egyptian. There's no blood on the door. You might think he gets smitten also. He gets the plague. There won't be in you a plague. The Rebbe asked a question: what in the world is a Jew doing in the house of an Egyptian on the night that they're supposed to be leaving Egypt? The Jews are supposed to be leaving Egypt. They're supposed to be doing this big mitzvah of eating the Pesach offering and getting ready to go out of Egypt and be the birth of the Jewish people and receiving the Torah. And here's this Jew in the house of Egyptians. What in the world is he doing there? So obviously this is talking about a Jew who is a traitor to his people, and he is against God. And this person deserves certainly to be killed, and it says God won't kill him. Nevertheless, it says that the plague, this plague of the firstborn is only for the Egyptians. Even if a Jew really tries to be like an Egyptian, and he tries, nevertheless, Hashem will pick him out and he'll say, no, you're going to get saved. You're not an Egyptian, you don't get the plague. The Balaturium says, V'haya hadam, the blood will be for a sign. Lachem b'gematria mila. Lachem is the same gematria as the word circumcision, mila. That in that night they circumcise themselves. So this is not what I was looking for. Okay. Kasiv Chesed, it says le'ot. It's missing the letter vav to tell you that from the time that Avram was circumcised until Egyptians, that there was how long? Taf Aleph Shana, 401 years. Ha'ot. See, it says it should be la'ot. What is the ot? The ot, this word ot, Aleph Taf, is the gematria, numerical value 401. Taf is 400. So it's 401 years from one time Abraham made his circumcision until the Jews got out of Egypt. Okay, that's all for today. We learned about the Korban Pesach, and it says afterwards that those are the main commandments, and then it says also you should make a holiday for you, a chag for God, a holiday for the Jewish people. 7 days you should eat matzah, etc. And we'll learn about this, God willing, tomorrow. Have a good day with Mashiach. Like I remember what I said, tomorrow, God willing, we're learning at 8 o'clock. It's going to be from 8 o'clock until 8:45. See you tomorrow. Shalom.